Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our special episode of Masters of Product Live. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a live unboxing of the 2025 AI-empowered Product Teams Benchmarking Report. To give you guys some context, over the summer, we asked probably about 50 plus CPOs to figure out how they're really using AI. And we focus on three things. We focus on how are the teams using AI right now? No hype, just reality. Where they are in the journey, and what are some of the biggest obstacles or barriers they had to overcome to help their teams get there, or some of the barriers they're still overcoming. We took all of that great information firsthand. We probably had about 100 hours of research. We put it all together into a benchmarking report. And it was first ever benchmarking report for the industry and so on. So instead of me walking through the slides, talking about it, I figured it's much more fun and a lot more interesting if I invited a few of our CPOs to come in and actually talk about the report and react to the data and what resonated with them and what surprised them. So in order to do that, I have 4 awesome CPOs. I'm going to introduce them shortly. And we're just going to have a fun conversation, right? Think of it less as a presentation and more as an open, practical, candid conversation. As for me, my name is Mustafa Kapadia. I help product organizations figure out how to use AI so they can be more effective and efficient. You can learn more about me at echo-point.com. Friends, fellow CPOs, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Before we actually jump into the questions, we do have some audience. So in order for that, hey, if you guys are listening in, please introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. And we want this to be a live interactive experience. So if you have questions, just drop it in, and then we'll have each of the audience members answer the questions. With that being said, if it's okay with you guys, we're gonna just jump in. And Lucinda, the first question is actually for you. When you took a look at the report, what resonated you the most with you?
Hi, Mustafa. First quick intro. I'm an independent consultant. Right now I'm doing interim chief customer, chief product officer types of roles. My background, I was chief product officer at Weight Watchers, and I've led large product and digital organizations at Walmart, Sephora, Lonely Planet, Gap, a whole bunch of places. So first of all, I love this report. It was great to see, and it confirmed a lot of the things that I suspected and that I've observed both where I've worked, but also with my clients. So 2 things that jumped out, and they're related. The first one is, the insight that leadership support is so far ahead of the broader maturity of the organizations. When you look at that spider chart, you see it's sort of like, look, leadership support, and then everything else, right there. And, and I think this is something that within product with leaders, but also in general within organizations, there's just a lot of hand waving where the CEOs and the CPOs are saying like, you should be using AI. And they're like, hey, voila, now we are AI-ified, right? And I think that disconnect of, the concerted effort that it takes and the clarity of expectations that it takes in order to drive adoption are what you're just not seeing yet. And it's hard to tell whether that's because CPOs don't realize how much work it takes to really adopt it effectively, or they don't know what it looks like. And that's, I think one of the interesting things that we should be unpacking. But, even like, and it's so interesting to me how often I will hear somebody say, oh, I use ChatGPT to do this. And they do it like it's a shame. Like the way people used to look for cancer or weed, they're like, oh, I use ChatGPT. And so, and like, how do we bring that out in the forefront? Yeah. Like, yeah, I use ChatGPT for this. I was super efficient. Yeah. And how do we endorse that? But the second key thing, and I think that, and this is very much related, is that, the barriers are organizational, not technical. And that the skills gap is really what's undermining adoption. And again, I think there's, the hand waving of like, well, just go use AI. And there's this assumption and there's this belief that you just use it and it works and it's fine. And that is true to a certain degree. But if you don't actually have a process or or knowledge of how to get the best results out of it, you are very likely to put in something silly like write me a PRD and then be really disappointed at the results. And now you're undermining your desire to adopt it. You're making the person feel stupid because they think that they're doing something wrong. And we're not giving them that clarity of how to actually use it. I mean, anybody and all of us have been through change management initiatives. We know like you need to set expectations and you need to then provide the skills and the training in order for people to get there. And then you need to reinforce it. I think it's 7 times. But this is something where we're not teaching people how to do the interrogation of the AI and to do the refining and the infolding that you need to do to really get to what you want. And so these two key things, like I said, I think they come together, but I was not surprised by them, but it really reinforced what I'm seeing and observing and what I'm feeling, which is everybody says they're AI. And of course we're doing AI and AI is super easy and everybody's using it. But what and how they're using it is nowhere near the opportunity that we actually see.
I 100% agree. I think both the things you talked about number one, leadership is far ahead than their teams are. And the thing that you mentioned is that they feel like they're cheating. We see that in data all the time. And the fact is then people don't know how to use it or they have the wrong tools. Herman, if it's okay with you, please, a quick introduction, but I'm curious to see, how did you see, or what was it about the data that resonated with you, or maybe just a reaction to what Lucinda shared?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick introduction. Hello, everyone. Herman Soto Sanchez, the Chief Product and Strategy Officer, Broadridge Financial. Broadridge is a global fintech, S&P 500, about 15,000 associates on a global basis. Our focus really is around investing, governance, and communications, all of that associated with financial services. So look, in terms of the report, there was a lot that resonated with me in terms of the report. Actually, a lot of topics are very much top of mind, I think, not just for CPOs, but for CEOs, for CTOs, for strategists, et cetera. And along the lines of what Lucinda mentioned, really there are two things that struck me, and they're both related to adoption and impact. Right. And so I think the first one was around sort of how usage is growing, but benefits are varied. Right. And I think that we are approaching a point now where there is a significant emphasis on what is the ROI on your AI investments. Right. I think you go back 2+ years. A lot of money. I mean, you just think about like the kind of deals that OpenAI is striking, right? When you strike a $30 billion deal with one company, that just lets you know the kind of investment that's happening here. So you should expect significant payback from this. And I think that we are reaching a point where now people really want to see that. And the reason this resonates for me is because the way we think about it, a lot of initiatives to date have been more where AI is bolted on to an existing process, as opposed to AI being integrated into an existing process where you potentially even sort of re-engineer the process itself to be better suited for taking advantage of AI. And so I think this bolt-on is what gets you like that 5 to 10%. Hey, I've got some like efficiency gains, like 5 to 10%, but it needs to be much more. But to do that, you really got to transform the process and embed AI within the process. And so that's part one. I would say part two is when we talk about barriers to adoption. Right. And there are very various ones that are highlighted when we talk about, for example, policies restricting access to AI. So I think that was around 19% or so in the study. When we think about that, for our company, we want 100% of our people to access AI, and 100% of our people do have access to AI. Now, we've built a platform where we sort of control that so that we can embed governance, and compliance into that. But the point is, like, every single person at our company right now is able to access AI, has a range of tools at their disposal, and we continue to add to those tools really almost on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, I think that's I love both your points, and you're absolutely right. A lot of people are using it as bolt-on as opposed to integrating or embedding the work into their process, and I think it makes a huge difference, right? And then just having people access to their tools. If it's okay with you, let me go to the other two guests because I know they're dying to jump in. Dave, if it's okay with you, I want to ask you the opposite question. I want to ask you, was there something in that data that kind of surprised you? Or you thought that you had a certain point of view and the data proved or gave you a different perspective?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. And for intro, I'm Dave Fleischman. I'm been a CPO at Angie, Blue Nile. I was senior product at Compass. And right now, what I'm doing is helping St. Jude Children's Research Hospital on their fundraising side. It's called ALSAC, and filling in a bunch of areas. Right now, it's kind of an executive consultant. The thing that made me stop was it was sort of an aha moment, right? Like, as the story's going along and you realize who the killer is, it's kind of what I realized was the problem here. But the very analogous to mobile first. So we all went through the mobile stuff that we went through, 10, 15 years ago. And people would say, hey, we're mobile first. And then you'd say, well, what did you do? Well, we squished our website down to make it work on the mobile device, and it's great, right? And they didn't think about touch targets. They didn't think about responsive. They didn't think about an app. They were just like, well, we showed you a picture. And that's not really what mobile first was about. And you saw the companies that really understood that mobile first meant reorienting the entire enterprise around mobile. And that applies pretty well because I think if we went back 15 years, people would debate you that you're going to have 80% of your traffic from mobile. But now today it's like that's the norm. And I actually had people say at that time it's a fad. They're all and the thing that I would really bristle against, and I have for my career, is ascribing intent to device. And so people would say, well, mobile for people on the go, right? So we don't want to do that. And I think in terms of what really got me here is, I think Herman and Lucinda said it pretty well, which is it's not a bolt-on. It's not a series of things I'm going to do one-off. It's not a series of things I'm going to take here and just try to alleviate something. I see it as a complete reorientation of the entire enterprise around AI. You have to look and say, how is AI being used as a way to scale people up, right? And I don't think people should be afraid of, oh, my job, I'm worried about this. It makes it just easier to get your job done. And I think we'll talk some more later about some ways where I see that will help. But to me, it's got to be taken as a serious core feature of what you do, both in terms of productivity and resource productivity, but also in terms of recruiting. Because if you don't have a strong AI bent, people are not going to want to come work with you because they're going to feel like they're going to fall behind in their skill set. And it's so fast moving and so necessary to keep up with it. I use 3 different agents to try different things out and learn. It's just you're going to have to figure out how this works as part of your core offering.
I agree with you. And I mean, we're getting to the point in which like AI is like Outlook. Imagine, can you ever work in a day without Outlook or Gmail? It's impossible, right?
I think at Google, like when Google came, yes, search got better, but like nobody was manually searching the web anymore, right? You just didn't do that. And I think that people get lost in what is meant by AI. There are 3 categories I think about. One is customer-facing AI, and everybody's like, oh, chatbots. And I don't think chatbots are the way to go, right? People are getting sick of chatbots. Mostly they should be transparent. Second, there's make my job a little easier, which is the stuff that I call them the baubles.
Yes.
The little ornaments. You're like, hey, I just did a spreadsheet and I calculated it faster. But third is how you work, and that's the biggest one. And that's where you can really scale up. So that's kind of how I break it down for folks.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Dave. Brian, please, a quick intro and then just your reaction to what's been said or anything that surprised you the most.
Yeah, actually, what everybody said is going to lead in perfectly to where I'm going to go. So, hi, audience. Brian Fugere, former Chief Product Officer at CentralSquare, which was a public safety, public administration company. And before that, same role with a lot of other things at Simpler, which was a healthcare operations company, CPO, CMO, my entire career. My key takeaway and surprise really is sort of the summary of what everybody has just said, and what you'll see as you go through the report is that the understanding of the art of the possible is just not there yet. And there are lots of little indicators that say people are still dabbling, that leadership thinks that they need to have AI and they want to have AI, but you can tell based upon the other responses that they don't really know what to do yet. And so as we get deeper into the conversation, we'll talk about how to operationalize this and really make it a daily habitual behavior. But right now, the state of the state is that it's like a cool concept that nobody really knows what to do with. And you heard Lucinda, Herman, and Dave hit on that as they were talking about what they pulled out of the report. And really, it all kind of comes down to that. They just don't know what to do with it yet.
I 100%. I think not just leadership, but most rank and file product managers don't know the possibility of AI, right? When we do our assessment, we find that they use it for writing emails or summarizing reports or doing search. And you've heard me say this, like, that's like using a Ferrari as a paperweight. And so it really is just things you can do. It's amazing.
Mustafa, can I jump on something that
Yeah,
I think that because the theme here, and just listening to Dave and Brian and Dave, I was also thinking about the parallels of mobile and mobile adoption. And we sort of went through those three phases of the first phase was squish it down. The second phase was like, oh, what can be done better with mobile? And then the third phase is what can only be done in mobile, right? So when you start talking about location awareness, that's something you never could do with, with desktop. All of a sudden it opened up a whole universe of use cases and opportunities. And I think exactly what you and Brian are saying, which is we are still at the, like, how do we get more efficient, and how are we, using it to sort of like cram down what have been our usual use cases and do it within AI, versus like flipping the script of what are those things you can only do now because AI exists?
Yeah.
And that's just a wildly different question to be asking. And the fact that and part of it is, I do think that AI is still evolving. And right now it's still much better, obviously, at the efficiency parts. But like that, what can be done with AI that we haven't even envisioned yet? That's when things start to get super, super powerful and interesting.
100%. I mean, we're seeing some of it, right? I mean, I've talked to each one of you guys separately, but prototyping changes the way PM.
Wildly changed, yes.
The fact is, you have synthetic users and digital twins changes the way things, right? The whole market research piece changes it, and it actually flips everything on its head. You can do so much faster, right? No reason to write 2D requirement documents anymore when you can actually have a 3D prototype and then go back and forth between the two. I'm curious, Lucinda, you said something earlier that kind of piqued my mind. You said that you found out that people felt they were cheating, right? Which, by the way, you learn these things from when you talk to PMs. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I'm curious if I can just go around the table and say, what are some of the things that you heard from your teams that just kind of said, oh my God, I can't even imagine that that's the way people think. I'm just curious. Because you can learn a lot about how your team is thinking about, right? Anybody wants to, anybody wants to go first before they heard anything?
I would just say two things. Number one, if anything, we want people to use AI in every way, shape possible.
Yeah.
But do it the right way, do it responsibly. And so we actually, have a place where people post how they use AI. And so we call it sort of the Power AI tool site. And so basically, hey, I just figured out a way to use it to do this or to do that or to do that. And it's grown so much that we have different categories, different tabs. If you're a product manager, here are like the 20 different things that you can use AI for, you're a developer, etc. So, I think for us and for a number of folks, it's like, it's been great and it helps me, etc. I think the one thing that I hear people sometimes say, it's like, oh, that's not exactly, which alludes a little bit to what Brian said beforehand is, this is not about your job in terms of like, you don't have to worry about your job. But there's definitely that muscle memory among some folks, which is like, AI is coming after my job. It's like, it really isn't, right? This is, about unburdening you from sort of routine tasks that take up a lot of time so you can spend your time on more value-added tasks. It's about basically sort of therefore using that freed up time to be more innovative, right? And push the thinking. It's about sort of upskilling you with a set of tools that probably will make you even not just productive, but actually allow you to explore some new avenues, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's the point that we definitely focus on driving home, but it definitely is an undertone of that across. It's not just our company. I think it's a lot of places as well, right? So it's something that we continue to try to make a case for folks like this.
But that is the boogeyman. That is the boogeyman, and I agree with the positioning. But when you look at all of the layoffs of all the tech companies, like it's a boogeyman, and there's a lot of data out there that people are looking at and kind of going like,
yeah, I think that's a real problem, and I think companies are trying to strategically take their capital investments into AI. I think it'll flip back around. I don't think it's going to stay like this. And analogous to this, as Mustafa knows, I write lots of novels, and I don't say any of them are good, but I write them. And when I submit the novels to agents, they always ask, was this novel written with AI or any of these materials written with AI? And the answer is always no, because that's not the part that I need help with, right? AI is not going to write a novel for me. And that's the part I want to do. And I think for taking people who are doing their jobs as product managers, designers, it's giving you time back to do what you love to do. It's not going to take away that stuff that you wanted, that you love to do. It's actually taking the time away from something else.
Yeah.
Now, AI doing my dishes would be the ultimate thing, right? That's what I want to get to, because I don't want to do that at all.
It'll get there. We have AI and robots coming soon. But I think you make a really good point, because AI allows you to do things that you are good at better.
Yeah.
Right? Like the difference between you and your peers in an area that you love, you can just use AI to leapfrog the entire.
Well, everybody wants time back. And so how
Yeah.
do you use AI to give you time back to do the stuff you really want to get into, like talking to customers?
Yes.
I have more time to talk to customers. That's only a good thing, right? And if I'm not writing 50-page PRDs anymore, which I never like to begin with, to be clear.
Yeah.
Like, I'm writing a 1-page PRD with a prototype. That's a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. That's writing. If it's okay, let me flip the script. I know we talked about our product teams and product organizations. Herman, this is for you. I know you just came out of, or you're in a board meeting. If you actually had to give a one headline to your CEO about the key takeaway from the report, what would that be?
So I think from a headline point of view, is really that sort of the blueprint does exist for success. And what I mean by that is, I think in the report, there's the section where we focus on the trailblazer characteristics, right? So there are markers of success of institutions that, have cracked the code, right, in terms of really driving demonstrable value from AI, whether it's like, how do you reimagine your culture, right? Make it sort of AI first, whether it's what we've talked about, right? How do you really embed AI within sort of the life cycle? How do you sort of generate sort of standardized playbooks? How do you drum up leadership support at every level, and so on and so forth? And so there are markers around what a program looks like that successfully is able to generate and drive value from AI. And obviously, the stat, that I often hear is 8 out of 10 institutions are implementing and utilizing AI in some way, shape, or form. But out of those 8 out of 10, another 8 out of 10 have failed to realize any value from that.
100%.
Right? And so there's a playbook, there's markers of success. At the same time, it's not translating into a lot of people being able to
there's a huge chasm between that, the implementation or the adoption.
Exactly right. So if the playbook is there, it's about that execution, right? And so let's focus on that execution. We wrap that.
I think that's a great point. Lucinda, if it's okay, I'm going to flip to you too. I know last time when we talked about doing this thing, I know you were about to go in front of the board as well, which is why the genesis of the question. What's the one headline or takeaway you would like to give to a board or a CEO about the report?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that skills gap. I think that this is not, it's not just about knowing that, you pull up ChatGPT and that makes you AI, an AI specialist. It's that how to use it effectively is in and of itself a skill. And I think, there's a saying that in order to be fluent in a language, you need to know 30% of the words, right? You don't need to know 100% of the words to be fluent, but you need to know 30% of the words. And I think too often what we see within an organization, they'll say, hey, I'm 100% digital, I'm 100% AI, they'll say I'm 30% digital or 30% AI. What they mean is this silo over here is 100% and everybody else is 0. And I think that's happening a lot with AI as well, which is sort of like to the point of like 8 out of 10 are, these metrics were like 8 out of 10 are AI enabled and AI first, yada, yada. They're made up because what it is that there's some particular area where the people have gone really, really strong and they're 100%, but that does not translate to 30% fluency across the organization. And so it's needing to know, and I love, Herman, what you're talking about of having the places where people are sharing best practices by their particular skill set. I think that's so powerful because this is something where it's not enough to say, how do you just ask ChatGPT to do basic things for you? Really think about the learning and the skills needed in each particular skill set is going to be different and needs to be indoctrinated. And so how do we get to that 30% fluency where every individual is at least 30% fluent? And that's what we should be aspiring to, as opposed to being able to say, hey, I have this one perfect project over here, this one perfect organization. It's really about how do you put it out throughout the entire org.
I agree with you. In fact, what you said earlier, plus talk about AI fluency makes 100%. We see that all the time. But more importantly, when I've seen organizations which they believe that just giving people access to the tools is good enough. And what happens is what you said, Lucinda, earlier, is that they give them a tool, they try to do some work, and the results come out just so bad and so crappy that they're like, oh my God, maybe this is not as great as people think it is. Right. Now, then, as a leader, you have the additional hurdle to first convince them that it is, and then build a fluency. So in many ways, you're shooting yourself in the leg if all you're doing is giving them tools, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is we should be doing the things that we've always done as product people, which is we pilot things, we learn from it, and then we roll it out, right?
Yeah.
And too often you just see this sort of like, oh, we've rolled it out everywhere. And we're just going to let people pick it up and figure it out themselves. And it's all like, how did we lose track of all those best practices of change management and piloting and things that we've all done for decades? It's getting lost in the shuffle of like, like the need for speed around AI, just so they can all go to their board and say like, we're AI-ified. Like we've entirely lost track. And it reminds me of during the .com boom, where it's one of those, they'd be like, we've got a website, and you're like, everything's done, check. It's just like this race to check the box instead of really being thoughtful about how are we going to bring this to
it's easy to buy tools, right? Because it's easy to buy tools. It's what Herman said earlier. It's the adoption and the implementation where people where the chasm is.
I cringe every time I hear that like the tech guy is the one in charge of AI.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that. So it's perfect. Dave, if it's okay with you, you and I have spent some time on this one too. Is like, given your experience, given what you see in the report, how are you planning to use some of these findings to help your organization become AI first? Because I know that's one of the mandates that you have as the executive consultant to the CEO.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I want to say on Lucinda's point, it's really important that I think remind me as well. If you give AI to people and they don't know how to use it and it's bad results, it's like opening a restaurant in a neighborhood and you don't have a good first year because your service is bad. Nobody's coming back, right? If you have a bad experience at a restaurant, you're not going back unless your friends are like, really, it's gotten a lot better. You should try it again. So you set that hurdle up and you start in a ditch and you have to get out of that ditch. So you should be thoughtful about it. In terms of how we want to use it, there's a few things that I'm thinking about. One, for product in particular, one of the things I loved about being at Apple was everything was prototyped. Every feature, every implementation, every transition, all the pixels were right. And it's always been an aspiration of mine to be able to do that somewhere else. And it's not going to be as good as Apple. Like nobody should chase Apple because Apple does what Apple does really well. But take that concept of, can I take a lot of the burden and then translation off the ideas by building a prototype that's accurate and then doing a one-page PRD or a requirements document with it. But I think if you can move the product and design team to doing like pair coding style or vibe coding, I guess we want to call it now, style of creating a prototype that they can hand to engineering and say, this is exactly what I want to do. Here's the timing, here's the transition. Two things come from that. One, I've built a couple of sites in vibe coding, and you get more accountability, right? When you see something that's not right today, like a lot of product managers, I don't blame them. It's like, oh, this isn't quite right, but do I care enough to go fix it?
Yeah.
Right. But when you're building a prototype, you'll see it and you can fix it like that. Yeah. And so that's really valuable, and I think it's going to raise quality. There's two other things.
And prototypes help you figure out what the gaps are in your thinking too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When you write something versus when you draw something.
Yeah.
You're like, that's a huge leap.
It's showing versus telling, right? Which is really exactly. That's really the great thing. I think two other points I would think about. One is you have to have a train the trainer model in the team, right? Who are going to be your champions for AI in each group that you're working with? Because you're not going to be able to get to everybody. I can't take everybody through a bespoke AI course, teach them how to use it. You want to get a cross-functional layer, which is the third piece that we're doing right now with ALSAC and St. Jude, is how do we bring AI to the specific disciplines So legal's implementation and use of AI, as Armand talked about, is different than HR's use, which is different than marketing's use. But you need somebody to come in and say, let's figure it out together on how to use AI really for your team. And let's do that. So I'm working right now on getting champions from each of the groups in ALSAC and saying, okay, let's talk to the legal team. I need a champion. Let's talk to the marketing team. I need a champion. Then we help them figure out tools, processes, right? And then we'll scale it out that way. But it's got to be, somebody's got to be able to train the trainer on these things. That's how we approach it.
I 100% agree. I think, and we've seen that too, is when you do cross-functional training, it actually helps. And actually the opposite helps, opposite hurts you too. So when we work with the clients and we've actually enabled the product team, and the product team works so much faster now, it actually puts pressure on all the other teams around them to then raise their bar.
Right? I do that with test and learn velocity. There's a company I hire almost everywhere I go that does just conversion rate optimizers, and they just get them out like that. And it always gets the team fired up because I can get more done. So you have to show that type of like that envy. I want that. Yeah. And then people will be much more passionate about it because they're like, that looks great, right? That looks like they have an easier job and they're having more fun. I want to go do that too.
Yeah, when I was at Sephora and we were in the mobile transition, one of the things I did was I hired a director of mobile strategy who basically her mandate was, I called her the fire starter, because we had figured out mobile within product, but our merchandising and marketing and all the other teams. And so basically she was empowered to go sit with them and look at all the things that they were doing and help spark ideas of how mobile could be done differently there. And so I think there's just, like if the train the trainer, I'm totally with you, Dave. And I think that even if you take it a step further of the like, who is that, the AI fire starter who's going to really go out and sit with each team?
They have to be with each team, though. I think you have to have your legal fire starter and your marketing fire, because they know it, right? And I've introduced the legal team to a couple of companies that do legal AI, but I can't be there every day with them. And I don't understand what they do well enough to say, well, you should do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it was her day job for about 3 months. Before then, she was able to do other things, but went out to create those fire starters within each of the teams. So that's a whole, like,
really smart.
How do you bring for her, is how do you bring the mobile understanding and like the primer of mobile and figure out then who's going to be your fire starter within the organization. And I think that's a model that works for AI too. And just because the workflows and again, how do you interrogate and work with the AI? There are basic skill sets that then need to get applied within each of the specific disciplines.
Yeah.
But you need somebody who's the expert.
Yeah. This is a perfect segue because Brian and I have been lucky enough to work several times together. And the last time around, not only did he get the PMs to go through the program, but he had the engineers and designers, and I think you even had technical writers, if I'm not mistaken, to go through it, because I think that impacts that impacts how the rest of the organization adopts it. Which kind of brings me to the question is, Brian, in your opinion, how do you make that AI stick, right? In addition to having trained the trainers or champions or ambassadors, how do you make it becoming a habit? Like, you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you look at Gmail or Outlook, right? That's a habit. How do you make AI that pervasive?
Yeah, I think there's a number of steps that you have to go through to really help your team and all of the teams really get there and understand what you need to do to do all the things that we've talked about. It does need to become part of your daily habitual behavior. And some of the things that we've done in the past, first off, as the CPO or as the leader within an organization, you need to fight for the freedom to go do this. We saw in the report, and Herman talked about it, 20% still have restrictive policies on governing the use of AI. We all understand the risks associated with sharing proprietary data in a public LLM model versus an enterprise model where you have the security and more involved. You just have to be careful and you have to be smart, but you shouldn't have all those restrictions. So you got to go fight for that. You need to fight for the budget, and you have to reinforce the priority over and over again. And
even getting the right tools, trust me.
Yes, that's right. You've got to have the right tools for your people. And so understanding how this can impact you, the return on the investment and the opportunity cost of not doing it is critical to set the stage within your organization and within your team. And then make the time You have to mandate making the time for them to invest in learning how to do it. Whether it's a trainer model like Dave suggested, or you bring someone in that we happen to know to do some training. Either way, whatever technique works for you, invest and make it mandatory that they learn how to do it and see what the power is that already has developed within these tools. And it will only get better. And Lucinda talked about that. We're still at the early stages. And really what you can do is make it better. And then you have to set up your internal operating rhythms to make sure that people are using it, make sure that they're doing things consistently across your entire portfolio. And that's where a good, strong product operations team or leader comes into play that can set up that standardization and the sharing. Like Herman talked about, that website's a great idea. Hey, I did this. Here's how I did it. You need to be able to share those successes and the things that you tried that didn't really work out so well, because maybe somebody can help you make it better.
Yeah.
But you've got to share those best practices, share those successes, and so that it becomes adopted. And as it becomes adopted, then the people that are lagging start to feel left behind, and that FOMO takes over, and they invest a little bit more time, and they start exploring on their own. And so we saw in the data, ChatGPT, Copilot are the two leading models that are being used today. ChatGPT because it's the one that everybody knows, and Copilot because it's the one that's free that comes with Microsoft. Well, I hate to let you know, but it's not the best one to use. And so you've got to explore the other models that really can do different things in different ways and give you different results. And you might need multiple models to do the things that you want to do on a daily basis. And so your job as the leader is to create the space, make them use it, and follow up to make sure that they're adopting it. And above all else, don't forget the money. You've got to have budget for licenses. You've got to have budget for training. And the one that I forgot the last time was you've got to have budget to give people raises, because you're going to upskill them into new jobs. And if you don't have that money, it becomes really hard to turn into something else.
Yeah.
So don't forget the money. That's big.
I think that's fantastic, Brian. And you know what I enjoyed when we're working together is that you had such a holistic point of view when you want to drive the change, right? So yes, enablement is a big part of it, right? But we spent a lot of time on making sure product ops is there, doing the driving the adoption, doing the processor engineering. There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen. You may start with that training part, but that's just the beginning, right? And so we have to go through quite a lot. Like always, I always run out of time, so I'm going to ask you guys one last question, and we're just going to go around the table, if that's okay. Listen, 2025 was the first time we published the report, and yes, we focused on 4 or 5 things that we wanted to glean. I'm curious, because we plan to run this again in 2026. What's the one question or data point you would like us to ask in 2026 that you think we missed in 2025 or can enhance 2025?
I'll go first. It's not one that you missed, because I don't think you can ask the question yet, but you did call it out in the data. Next year, I want to see what specific product tools are emerging in the market and the adoption of using those versus the general LLM. Right? Today, it's just the general LLM. But what's AHA doing? What's Jira doing? What are some of the other specific tools that emerge that we don't even know about? What's happening in the UX world and the tech writing world, because those are important too.
Yes.
And so what does adoption around and emergence of those tools look like?
I agree with you, because I think each one of these companies are investing in some type of an AI to enhance their current product.
Figma's doing that right now. We're trying Figma out.
Wave is doing fantastic.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So what happens between now and next year with the Figma tool as an example?
Yeah. And that's a good question, because there's always a dichotomy. It's like, do you create something general LLMs to use for everything, or do you create specific things? And I think I think the answer is you're going to end up needing both based on the use case.
Until it all consolidates.
Yeah. That's a great question, Brian. Anyone else? What else would you like to know?
I have one that I don't know is plausible, but I definitely have one, which is, of people who adopted AI, what's their job satisfaction or what's their productivity level? And really as a point to say, like, here's what you get with this. Like, you turn one person to one and a third person. And so I don't know how you would gather that, but that would be a really fascinating point. You'd have to define, like, what's full AI adoption, and how do you measure a job like NPS for employee satisfaction?
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting metric.
Well, we do before and after with our clients. I mean, there's a way there to measure, because that's one of the dimensions that we measure.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that'd be fascinating.
Yeah, but yes, I would have to figure out how to make sure that we don't talk about client data, but there's probably a way for me to obfuscate that and do a generic one.
Yeah, I think
that's a good one. But I agree with you, because I think job satisfaction does increase, right?
I think it will, and retention of employees,
Yeah.
and you want people to like we talked about, have a good time doing what they do and spend their time on that, not on meetings, because I'm sure more people leave because they have too many meetings and they don't get to do what they want to do, more than any other reason, if they really were honest with themselves.
I mean, we've seen it too. I mean, I'm going to pick on Brian too. When we started with Brian, we had several people who were very skeptical and were afraid about AI. And by the end of it, they were like, they could not stop singing the praises, because once they realized how to use it effectively, back to Lucinda's point, they were more like, oh, this is not going to take my job away. This is just going to make my job easier, right? But that turning point takes time. Those are good data points. Herman, Lucinda, what do you, anything that you would like to see in the report?
What I would add is a question more forward-looking in terms of expectations. And so, for example, when I think about something like the product development lifecycle, right, there's probably sort of how is AI used across the different steps today, or specifically, and then how do we think it will look like in 2 or 3 years? Just to calibrate kind of expectations across the group. And, that may be something that looks different by maturity score, which again will be an interesting cut to see how those expectations vary depending on your maturity level of your AI program.
I think that'd be, yes, I like that too, because it is going to change. And by the way, the process that we do product management is going to change dramatically too.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're going to come to a new world. I like that one. Thank you, Herman. Lucinda, please.
I would love to see more, when you look at which organizations have achieved higher levels of maturity, I'd love to understand more about what budgets they spent on it, on a per person basis, what tools did they invest in, how much time have they spent on it. I think the how do you show the bridge between you are here and how you're stage 1, you want to get to stage 4, what does that cost? And I think Brian just laid out such a great list of here are the things that you need, your approach and the budget is necessary, but like starting to quantify what is having to be invested here, and therefore, and then, and eventually start getting to the ROI, obviously, but ultimately to help people manage their expectations of like, this is what it takes to really do well and to achieve what they're hoping to achieve. Really, I think will help us get past the hand waving and into the like, here's your blueprint.
Yeah, I agree. It just comes back to the adoption and implementation piece. It would be nice to actually have a journey map. This is great. I know we're almost out of time. I can talk to you guys for a long time, but we will, if it's okay with you, we'll have to do this again when we get 2026 report out. Yes. But thank you so much for joining us. We're almost out of time, but thank you for your time. I hope you guys all had a good time, and then we'll reconvene.
Thanks for having us.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Great.